The smell of old money is distinct. It doesn't smell like crisp banknotes or metal coins. It smells like lemon polish on mahogany wood, dust settling on leather-bound books that haven't been opened in a century, and the stale, recycled air of a high-rise law firm. It is a scent designed to intimidate, to make you feel small, to remind you that you are just a temporary guest in the house of power. I stood in the doorway of the conference room on the 42nd floor, my hand resting on the cold brass handle. My reflection in the polished wood was distorted, but I could see I looked tired. Not exhausted, just worn. Inside, my sister, Vanessa, was already seated at the head of the long, oval table. She looked like she was posing for a magazine cover titled Grief and Glamour. She wore a black dress that was tailored to within an inch of its life, a string of pearls that probably cost more than my entire apartment, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was a practiced look, the look of a woman who had already spent the inheritance in her head 5 years ago. Next to her sat her husband, Greg. He was checking his watch, tapping his foot rhythmically against the expensive carpet. Greg was the kind of guy who thought loud noises and firm handshakes were a substitute for personality. And across from them sat my mother, dabbing her dry eyes with a silk handkerchief, looking everywhere but at me. I stepped inside and moved toward the empty leather chair opposite Vanessa. It was the only other chair at the table. "Don't," Vanessa said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a whip. I paused, my hand on the back of the chair. The leather felt cool under my fingertips. "Hello to you too, Vanessa. It's been a while." "That seat is for primary beneficiaries, Ethan," she said, smoothing out the invisible wrinkles on her dress. She didn't look at me, she was inspecting her manicure. Dad was very specific about who he wanted at the table. The lawyer said family and key stakeholders. Well, let's be honest. You're here out of courtesy. A formality. She pointed a manicured finger toward the far wall. "You can sit on the bench." I looked over. It was a hard, wooden bench near the door, the kind usually reserved for paralegals, interns, or people delivering lunch. It was positioned specifically to be lower than the main table. A power play. Even in death, my father enjoyed architecture that established hierarchy. "I'm his son, Vanessa," I said, my voice steady, though I felt the familiar heat rising in my chest. "I think that qualifies me as family." "Biological son, yes," Greg chimed in, finally looking up from his phone. He offered me a pitying smirk, the kind a wolf gives a sheep. "But let's be real, Ethan. You haven't been part of the family business, or this family, really, for a decade. Arthur didn't consider you part of the inner circle. We're just trying to respect his final wishes. He wouldn't want you cluttering up the main table." My mother said nothing. She just stared at the table, her silence a form of endorsement she had perfected over 30 years. She was a statue of compliance. I didn't argue. I learned a long time ago that arguing with Vanessa was like wrestling a pig in mud. Eventually, you realize the pig likes it. I walked over to the wooden bench and sat down. The wood was hard against my back. From this vantage point, I could see the entire tableau. The grieving widow, the triumphant daughter, the sycophantic son-in-law. They looked like vultures circling a carcass that hadn't even gone cold yet. "Make sure you don't scuff the wall," Vanessa called out, not turning her head. "Mr. Sterling charges a fortune for office maintenance. I'd hate for that to come out of the estate before I even sign the papers." "You haven't signed anything yet, Ness," I said. "It's a formality, Ethan," she snapped, her mask slipping for a second. "We all know what the will says. Dad and I discussed it every Sunday brunch. The brunches you were never invited to." That stung. But she was right. I hadn't been invited to Sunday brunch in 10 years. Not since the incident. As we waited for the lawyer, the silence in the room grew heavy, allowing my mind to drift back. Back to the day I stopped being Ethan Blackwood, heir to the empire, and became Ethan, the disappointment. It was 10 years ago. I was 24, fresh out of business school, working as a junior VP in Blackwood Industries. I was eager, naive, and desperate for my father's approval. We were in his office, a massive glass box overlooking the city. My father, Arthur Blackwood, sat behind his desk like a king. Vanessa, 2 years older and already a shark, stood by the window. The safety reports are irrelevant, Ethan, my father had said, tossing the file I had spent weeks compiling into the trash bin. They aren't irrelevant, Dad, I had argued, my voice shaking slightly. The factory in Ohio. The ventilation system is failing. If we don't upgrade it, the workers are breathing in toxic particulates. It's illegal, and it's immoral. It will cost $2 million to fix, but we have the cash. $2 million is the difference between a good quarter and a great quarter, Vanessa had interrupted, turning from the window. If we fix it now, the stock dips. If the stock dips, the merger stalls. People could get sick, Vanessa, I said, incredulous. We're talking about human lungs, not stock options. My father stood up. He wasn't a tall man, but he cast a long shadow. He walked around the desk and stood inches from my face. I could smell his cologne, sandalwood, and tobacco. You are weak, Ethan, he whispered. It wasn't an insult, it was a diagnosis. You have a bleeding heart. In this business, a bleeding heart is a liability. It drains the blood from the head, where the decisions need to be made. It's not weak to care about our employees, I said. It is when it costs me money, he roared, slamming his hand on the desk. Vanessa understands this. Vanessa knows that sometimes you have to cut corners to build a castle. You want to hand out blankets and hot cocoa. He pulled a document from his drawer. It was a waiver, claiming the company had no knowledge of the ventilation issues. Sign this, he commanded. Sign it, and you get your bonus. You get the promotion. You get the keys to the Aston Martin. I looked at the paper. I looked at Vanessa, who was smiling, holding out a pen. I won't, I said. Then get out, my father said. He didn't yell this time. His voice was cold, final. If you walk out that door, you take nothing. No car. No apartment. No trust fund. You are on your own. Let's see how your morals pay the rent. I walked out. I left the keys on his desk. I took a bus to the other side of the city. I changed my name on my resume so I wouldn't get hired just because of my father. I worked construction. I started a small consulting firm from a basement. I scraped. I struggled. And for 10 years, I watched from a distance as Blackwood Industries grew, knowing it was built on a foundation I had refused to pour. A sound brought me back to the present. The heavy oak door creaked open. Mr. Sterling, my father's attorney for 40 years, shuffled into the room. He was a small man, withered by time, looking like he was made of parchment paper and secrets. He carried a thick, black binder that seemed too heavy for his frail arms. He glanced at the table. Then he glanced at me, sitting on the bench. His eyes, usually dull and watery, sharpened for a fraction of a second. He paused, adjusting his glasses. Mr. Sterling, Vanessa said, beaming. So good to see you. Please, sit. We're ready to get this over with. I have a spa appointment at 3. Sterling didn't smile. He walked to the head of the table, placed the binder down with a heavy thud, and sat. He opened the binder slowly, peeling back the first page with agonizing slowness. We are here to read the last will and testament of Arthur J. Blackwood, Sterling announced. His voice was dry, like leaves scraping against concrete. The estate is valued at roughly $85 million, including the liquid portfolio, the real estate holdings, and the controlling interest in Blackwood Industries. Vanessa let out a small, satisfied breath. 85. Better than I thought. Greg, make a note. Greg was already typing on his phone. Before we begin, Sterling said, looking up over his spectacles. I must clarify the conditions of the reading. Arthur updated his will exactly 6 months ago. Updated? Vanessa frowned. No, that's impossible. He would have told me. We managed his affairs together. The last will was from 2018. He came to me privately, Sterling said. He was quite specific that no family members were to know. A knot formed in my stomach. Was this it? Was he going to twist the knife one last time? Had he updated it to ensure I didn't even get a sentimental trinket? Proceed, Vanessa said, her voice tighter now. Read it. Sterling began to read. The list was exhaustive. To my wife, Eleanor Blackwood, I leave the summer home in the Hamptons and a monthly stipend of $20,000, provided she does not remarry. My mother nodded, sniffling. Generous. He was always generous. To my loyal chauffeur, Thomas, I leave the 1965 Mercedes and $50,000. To the Blackwood Charity Foundation. He went on for 20 minutes. Small sums. Charity donations. Specific furniture pieces to distant cousins. I sat on the bench, my legs going numb. I knew my name wasn't coming up. I was just waiting for the final dismissal. And now, Sterling said, turning a page. Regarding the bulk of the estate. The assets, the accounts, and the company shares. Vanessa leaned forward, her eyes hungry. Yes? To my daughter, Vanessa Blackwood, Sterling read. Vanessa smiled, grabbing Greg's hand. Finally. I leave the sum of $500,000. The room stopped. Vanessa blinked. Excuse me? You missed a zero. You mean 5 million? Or 50? 500,000, Sterling repeated. And the ownership of the family cat, Mr. Whiskers. The cat? Vanessa stood up, her chair scraping violently against the floor. I hate that cat. Is this a joke? Where is the rest? Where is the company? Where is the 80 million? Sterling looked at me. For the first time, he smiled. A small, dry twitch of the lips. The will continues, Sterling said. To my son, Ethan Blackwood. Vanessa spun around to look at me, her eyes wide with shock and fury. Him? The dropout? The traitor? To Ethan, who refused to compromise his integrity for profit 10 years ago, I leave. Sterling paused. The silence was deafening. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I leave the contents of the blind trust established on the day he walked out of my office. A trust that has been accumulating interest and dividends from the Ethical Growth Initiative, a side portfolio I created to bet against my own risky decisions, using Ethan's arguments as a guide. What does that mean? Greg asked, his voice cracking. It means, Sterling said, closing the binder, that while Arthur publicly mocked Ethan, privately, he bet on Ethan's morality. He invested in the safety upgrades Ethan suggested, through a shell company. He invested in the clean tech Ethan recommended. And he put all those profits into a trust. How much is it? Vanessa screamed. How much is in the trust? Sterling looked at me. Mr. Ethan, the trust is currently valued at $84.5 million. And it includes 51% controlling interest in Blackwood Industries. I sat there on the wooden bench. The hardwood suddenly felt like a throne. Vanessa's face went pale. All the blood drained from her perfect complexion. She looked at me, then at the bench, then back at me. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Wait, Greg stammered. So, he owns the company? He owns us? Vanessa is the CEO. Not anymore, Sterling said calmly. Unless the majority shareholder wishes to keep her. I stood up slowly. My legs weren't numb anymore. I walked over to the table. I didn't sit in the empty chair. I stood at the head of the table, right next to Vanessa. She looked small. You said I shouldn't sit there, I said softly, looking down at the leather chair she had denied me. You were right. I prefer to stand. I looked at the lawyer. Mr. Sterling, does the will mention anything about immediate executive decisions? It does, Sterling nodded. Effectively immediately. I turned to Vanessa. Get out of my chair. Get out of my chair. Vanessa repeated. Her voice was trembling, vibrating with a frequency that shattered the carefully constructed composure of the room. She gripped the leather armrests so tightly that her knuckles turned the color of bone. You think because this senile old bat reads a piece of paper, you can just walk in here and take my life? This is a joke. It's a sick, twisted joke. She turned to her mother. Mom. Do something. Tell him. Dad was out of his mind. He was on medication for his heart, it must have affected his cognitive functions. We can contest this. We will contest this. Undue influence. Insanity. My mother looked up. Her eyes were red, but for the first time in years, they were clear. She looked at Vanessa, then at me. He wasn't insane, Vanessa, my mother whispered. He was just watching. Watching what? Vanessa shrieked. Watching his legacy go to a construction worker? Watching you, I said, leaning over the table. And watching me. Mr. Sterling cleared his throat. The sound was like dry twigs snapping. If you are suggesting mental incompetence, Mrs. Blackwood Hayes, I anticipated this. Your father recorded a video addendum attached to the trust documents. Would you like to play it? Or would you prefer to vacate the chair gracefully? Vanessa didn't move. Play it. Sterling tapped his laptop. A projector screen lowered from the ceiling with a mechanical whir. The lights dimmed automatically. My father's face filled the screen. He looked older than I remembered. Paler. He was sitting in this very room, wearing a cardigan instead of his usual suit. He looked tired. Ethan, the video version of my father said. His voice rasped. If you are seeing this, it means I'm gone. And it means you didn't break. For 10 years, I waited. I waited for you to come crawling back. I waited for you to ask for a loan. I waited for you to sell out your principals for an easy paycheck. He coughed, taking a sip of water. But you didn't. You lived in that studio apartment. You drove that beat-up truck. I had private investigators tracking you. Did you know that? I have reports on every contract you won, every client you helped. You built a small, honest business while I built a massive, corrupt one. Vanessa gasped. He tracked you? Vanessa, my father continued on the screen, as if he heard her. I know you're sitting there. I know you're angry. You're angry because you did everything I asked. You were ruthless. You cut costs. You fired people to save pennies. You were the perfect soldier. But you were a terrible leader. You don't build, you consume. You are exactly like me. And that is why I cannot let you run this company. The screen went black. The silence in the room was heavier than before. It was the silence of a tomb. He hated me, Vanessa whispered, tears finally spilling over. Not tears of grief for him, but tears of self-pity. I did everything for him. You did everything for yourself, Ness, I said. You wanted the power. Dad just gave you the permission. This doesn't change anything. Greg suddenly shouted. He stood up, trying to inject some testosterone into the situation. We have lawyers too. We have contacts. You can't just seize $1 billion conglomerate based on a video. We've been running operations for 5 years. Ethan doesn't know the first thing about the current market. Actually, Sterling interrupted, flipping another page in his binder. That brings us to the second part of the disclosure. The sabotage audit. The what? Greg froze. The sabotage audit, Sterling repeated. He slid a thick stack of papers across the mahogany table toward me. Ethan, your father didn't just watch you. He watched them watching you. I picked up the stack. My eyes scanned the first page. It was an email printout. From Vanessa Blackwood to First City Bank, loan officer subject, Ethan Blackwood loan application message, ensure this is denied. Flag his credit as high risk. I will move our corporate accounts to your branch if you handle this quietly. My blood went cold. I remembered that loan. It was 5 years ago. I needed it to buy equipment for my first big independent contract. It was denied at the last minute for unspecified reasons. I almost went bankrupt. I had to sell my car and sleep in the office for 3 months. I flipped the page. From Greg Hayes to City Zoning Board subject, inspection of 42nd Street project message, send the inspector who hates paperwork. Make sure he finds a violation on Ethan's site. Shut him down for a month. That was 3 years ago. My site was shut down for a permitting error that cost me $40,000 in delays. I ate ramen noodles for weeks to pay my crew. I looked up. Greg was pale. He was sweating, small beads of perspiration forming on his upper lip. You? I started, my voice low, dangerous. You didn't just ignore me. You actively tried to destroy me. It was business. Vanessa cried, standing up now, finally abandoning the chair. It was just business. We couldn't have you succeeding. If you succeeded without Dad's help, it made us look bad. It made me look incompetent. We had to keep you down. You made me sleep on a floor, I said, walking slowly around the table toward Greg. You made me fire 2 guys, good guys with families, because I lost that contract. You did that. Greg backed away, bumping into the window. Ethan, look, man, we were under pressure. Your dad, he was demanding. We thought if you failed, you'd come back to the fold. We were trying to help you. To bring you home. Help me. I laughed. It was a dark, jagged sound. You bribed a bank to starve me out. I stopped in front of Greg. He flinched. Then, something incredible happened. Something that showed the true nature of a parasite. Greg looked at Vanessa, who was sobbing into her hands. Then he looked at me. He looked at the binder worth $85 million. He straightened his tie. He forced a smile. He extended his hand toward me. Look, Ethan, Greg said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Vanessa, she's crazy. You know that. She made me write those emails. She held the purse strings. But I always liked you, man. I always said, Ethan's got grit. If you're taking over the company, you're going to need a COO who knows where the bodies are buried. I can help you transition. I can testify against her if you want to contest her $500,000. Vanessa stopped crying. She looked up, mascara running down her cheeks. Greg? Shut up, Vanessa, Greg snapped. He looked back at me, eyes pleading. What do you say, Ethan? Partners? Brothers? I looked at his hand. It was manicured. Soft. The hand of a man who had never held a shovel, never built a wall, never bled for anything. I looked at Vanessa. The betrayal on her face was absolute. Her world wasn't just crumbling, it was vaporizing. Wow, I said softly. I knew you were a snake, Greg. But I didn't know you were a rat too. I didn't shake his hand. I turned to Mr. Sterling. Sterling, as the majority shareholder, do I have the authority to terminate executive contracts immediately? You do, Sterling nodded. Clause 12. Termination for cause. I believe corporate espionage and malicious interference with a competitor, even a small one, qualifies as a gross misconduct. Good, I said. I turned back to them. Greg, you're fired. And since you used company email to commit fraud against a bank, I'm pretty sure the severance package is $0. You can't do that. Greg shouted, his face turning red. I know secrets. I'll go to the press. Go ahead, I said. I own the press outlets too, remember? I turned to Vanessa. She was standing by the window, looking like a ghost. And you, I said. You wanted the chair? You can have it. I pointed to the leather chair at the head of the table. You can sit there for exactly 1 hour, I said. Because that's how long the forensic accountants need to download your hard drive before security escorts you out of the building. Forensic accountants? Vanessa whispered. Oh, did I forget to mention? I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Sterling gave me one more folder. The one about the creative accounting you've been doing for the last 2 years to hide the losses from the board. I tossed the last file onto the table. It slid across the polished wood and stopped right in front of her. Embezzlement is a felony, Ness, I said. And unlike Dad, I don't cover for family. The color drained from her face completely. She collapsed into the chair, my chair, not as a queen, but as a prisoner. Mr. Sterling, I said, buttoning my jacket. Lock the doors. Nobody leaves until the auditors get here. The hour that followed was a blur of bureaucratic violence. It wasn't violent in the physical sense, no punches were thrown, but lives were dismantled with the stroke of a pen and the click of handcuffs. The forensic accountants arrived first, looking like undertakers in cheap suits. They plugged into Vanessa's laptop, ignoring her protests. Then came the police. Mr. Sterling had been thorough. The evidence of embezzlement wasn't just a suspicion, it was a prepared case file ready for prosecution. You can't do this. Vanessa screamed as a female officer read her rights. I am Vanessa Blackwood. I own this building. You own a cat, I corrected her from the doorway. Mr. Whiskers. Don't forget to pick him up from the shelter. I imagine you'll need the company where you're going. Greg tried to slip away during the commotion. He almost made it to the elevator. But security had been alerted. 2 large guards, men who looked like they were carved out of granite, blocked his path. Mr. Hayes, one of them asked. We need your badge. And your company phone. And the keys to the company lease vehicle in the garage. Come on, guys, Greg pleaded, his voice cracking. I'm the COO. I sign your paychecks. Not anymore, the guard said, extending a hand. I watched Greg hand over his badge. He looked smaller without it. Stripped of his title, stripped of his wife's protection, stripped of his arrogance, he was just a man in a suit he could no longer afford. Then came the walk. The walk of shame through the lobby. I stood on the mezzanine balcony, looking down at the marble atrium of Blackwood Tower. It was lunch hour. The lobby was packed with employees, the same employees Vanessa had terrorized for years, the same ones Greg had underpaid. They stopped talking as the police escorted Vanessa and Greg toward the revolving doors. Vanessa tried to hide her face with her handbag, but it was too late. The whispers started. Then, someone, maybe a secretary who had been yelled at one too many times, or a janitor who had been invisible to them, started to clap. Slow, rhythmic applause. It caught on. Within seconds, the entire lobby was clapping. It wasn't a celebration of their misery, it was a release of tension. The tyrants were leaving. My mother was still in the conference room. She hadn't moved. She sat alone at the massive table, staring at the empty chairs where her daughter and son-in-law had just been. I walked back in. Ethan, she said, her voice hollow. She's your sister. You sent her to jail. She stole $4 million from the pension fund, Mom, I said gently. I didn't send her to jail. The penal code did. What happens to me, she asked. She looked frail. The powerful matriarch was gone. You get exactly what Dad left you, I said. The house in the Hamptons. The stipend. You'll be comfortable. You'll never go hungry. I paused at the door. But don't call me, I added. I'm not coming to Christmas. I'm not coming to Thanksgiving. You made your choice 10 years ago when you let Dad throw me out. You watched me struggle and you did nothing. Enjoy the Hamptons, Mom. It's beautiful this time of year. But it's lonely. I closed the door. Epilogue, 1 year later. The air in the factory smelled of ozone and fresh paint. It was a good smell. I walked along the catwalk overlooking the assembly floor of the Ohio plant, the same plant that had started it all. Below me, the new ventilation system hummed quietly, a massive silver lung breathing clean air into the facility. The workers weren't coughing. They were working. And when they looked up and saw me, they didn't look down in fear. They waved. "Mr. Blackwood," the foreman called out. "Production is up 15% this quarter. The new safety protocols are working." "That's great, Mike," I called back. "Keep it up. And remind everyone, early dismissal on Friday for the holiday." I walked back to my office, not the glass box in the sky where my father had sat, but a functional office on the ground floor. I checked my emails. There was a notification from the Department of Corrections. Inmate status update, Vanessa Blackwood. Location, minimum security facility, upstate. Status, denied parole. She had taken a plea deal. 3 years for embezzlement. Greg had divorced her 2 weeks into the sentence. He was currently selling used cars in New Jersey and living in a studio apartment that was smaller than the one I had lived in for a decade. Karma has a sense of irony. I deleted the email. I didn't feel happy about it. I just felt resolved. I picked up my jacket and walked out to the parking lot. I didn't drive an Aston Martin. I still drove my truck, though it was a newer model now. I drove to the cemetery on the edge of town. It was raining lightly, a gray drizzle that slicked the granite headstones. I stood in front of my father's grave. Arthur J. Blackwood, Captain of Industry. I placed a single white rose on the stone. "You were a bastard, Dad," I whispered to the wet grass. "You were cruel. You were manipulative. And you broke our family apart just to teach me a lesson." I looked at the factory in the distance, smoke-free and humming with life. "But you were right about one thing," I said. "I didn't break. And because of that, the company is finally something worth owning." My phone buzzed. It was a text from the trustee of the Ethical Growth Initiative, the fund my father had secretly built for me. "We were breaking ground on a new housing project for low-income families today. We're ready for you, Ethan. The ribbon cutting is in 20 minutes. I touched the cold stone of the grave one last time. "Rest in peace, old man," I said. "I'll take it from here." I turned and walked back to my truck. The rain stopped, and for a brief moment, the clouds parted. The sun hit the windshield, blinding and bright. It looked like gold. But this time, it was the kind of gold that didn't tarnish.